Carthage must be destroyed. If we change a few letters in the word Carthage, we get Russia must be destroyed. And then our world will live long and happily. Former citizens of the so-called Russia will live especially well.
An unbreakable union of republics of freedom.
Russia is like an old blanket made up of many patches. Each patch is a unique gem on its own, but together they make a rag for the floor, lying on the stove and getting covered with mold.
This map that Budanov hung up, that's how Russia will be divided. That's what they're preparing us for.
Hundreds of enslaved peoples currently live in Russia, and in fact, many of them are so oppressed that they don't even realize it.
What's your nationality?
Russian.
We're Buryats.
I'm Russian.
I'm Buryat. Grandpa is, so you are too.
No, I'm Russian.
Moscow, like a rabid vacuum cleaner, sucks all the resources and lifeblood out of the regions. And this will continue until, eventually, the regions tell Moscow to go the same way as the cruiser of the same name, and ultimately become independent states in the future.
The collapse of the Soviet Union is a continuation of the collapse of the Russian Empire, and it is not over yet.
Number one in line to leave the Russian Federation is the Republic of Sakha, or Yakutia. That's 3 million square kilometers of slavery. The most plundered and humiliated region of the pseudo-empire. This is a territory comparable in size to 5 Frances. Yakutia is the richest region in the world in terms of natural resources. It produces 100% of Russia's antimony, 98% of its diamonds, 40% of its tin, 15% of its gold, and 24% of its diamond production. The Republic accounts for 47% of the proven coal reserves and 35% of the natural gas and oil of all eastern Siberia and the Far East. Additionally, Yakutia contains approximately 22% of all of Russia's vast hydropower resources, and, remarkably, only about 900,000 people actually live there.
I am only in favor of the decommunization of Russia, no federalization, and I want Russia to fall apart because as long as Sakha is part of Russia, the Republic of Sakha will never develop. All our resources go toward the development of Muscovy.
For example, in the United Arab Emirates, on a tiny patch of land, 8 million people live. Can you imagine how the Yakuts should be living? But the Yakuts are poorer than anyone, even in impoverished Russia.
I don't know where else to go, what other doors to knock on, or whom to turn to. I'm just exhausted. Please help. Respected people, please help. Don't leave my granddaughter without a roof over her head.
Literally sitting on gold and diamonds, oil and gas, 20% of Yakuts live below the poverty line. Wages there are incredibly low, and even basic infrastructure is lacking.
The first floors of 2 entrances were flooded.
Here is his, cast, punctured. Now
there is a communal catastrophe in Yakutia. People are freezing in their own homes, and worst of all, in outdoor toilets. All this devastation and bleakness is impossible for a normal person to comprehend. Imagine if somewhere in Dubai they held a grand opening for a bus stop. The standard of living in Yakutia is like that of some African country like Somalia. The only difference is that in Yakutia it's minus 60 degrees and bananas cost half a month's salary.
Cucumbers and tomatoes are 600, bananas 400, pears 550, apples 350, tangerines 500, oranges 450. Grapes are 750 altogether.
Throughout the entire history of Russia as a federation, Moscow has been robbing the Yakuts, leaving nothing for the locals. This is a colonial criminal policy straight out of the 19th century. The Yakuts live and work in incredibly harsh natural conditions for mere pennies. While a nurse's salary is 45,000 rubles, the internet costs 18,000 a month. And the internet speed is comparable to Biden's response time to questions. At least they have something Western.
Alright, but without decent internet, how do people live here?
I honestly don't really know how people live here.
Is there no internet?
Yeah, in that regard, the internet situation is really bad. Satellite internet, well, as they say, for 400 kilometers in a straight line, there are only two providers, Roscosmos and Gazprom.
The Russians treacherously colonized Yakutia. Through brutal ethnogenocide, Moscow took away the Yakuts' culture and history. They were essentially driven into reservations.
The Russians attacked us to expand the territory of Russia. We didn't understand that. We told them, we still won't give you our diamonds or gold. And they were like, wait, you have diamonds and gold? Yeah. When I told this joke in Russia, someone shouted from the audience, enough whining already. Stop whining. Americans attacked the Native Americans in the same way. Do they whine about it? That's exactly what I wanted to talk about how the Americans attacked the Native Americans. For some reason, we all know about this, right?
It's really unclear why the Yakuts should live in Russia and be called Russians. They have nothing in common with this artificial nation.
It's a continuation of the Kremlin's enduring policy, a policy which the Kremlin has been persistently pursuing against our peoples for 4 centuries now. They kill us, ending our lives and leaving our loved ones to mourn our loss. They destroy us, tearing apart our homes and everything we have.
The religious, cultural, and social differences are enormous. Why should the Yakuts consider some Alexander Nevsky their national hero and be forced to memorize Mayakovsky's nonsense in school? Why should the Yakuts be fans of hockey? Maybe they actually hate ice altogether? Because, due to the lack of even basic infrastructure, they have to melt ice just to wash themselves.
Everywhere in Yakutia there is running water. Now, active phase of ice harvesting is underway. Ice is being harvested. First, a large piece is cut out, then divided into smaller ones.
The Russians behave like occupiers in Yakutia. In fact, they have turned the Republic of Sakha into a huge concentration camp, where the local residents extract resources for the Moscow invaders in exchange for food. How else can you explain that in a region through which the giant Power of Siberia gas pipeline to China passes, only 16% of the population has access to gas? There, people still heat their stoves with sticks and campaign flyers full of United Russia's election promises.
Yesterday, the weather was snowy and cold, with temperatures close to zero and even below zero in most parts of Yakutia. Voter turnout here was over 50% of the population.
Yakutia is so poor that even in those areas where gas has been supplied, it will soon be gone, because the gas pipeline is in an emergency condition and there is no money in Yakutia's budget for repairs. In the Republic of Sakha, where the total reserves of just the proven gas amount to 3.2 trillion cubic meters, worth approximately $1 trillion, there is no money to repair an old rusty pipe that hasn't been fixed since the 1960s.
And this is the toilet, which is an essential part of any home, especially here. Let's go take a closer look together and see exactly how a Yakutian toilet is set up and what makes it unique. So actually, it's all quite civilized here, by the way. Right away, sorry, it's for 3 people at once. Please do not throw paper into the pit.
But where is all the money earned by the people of Yakutia? Where is the rent from the sale of Yakutian natural resources? Here's where. Disco, disco, yes, aqua disco. Courchevel. You have to admit, friends, that word, well, it leaves a taste of luxury in your mouth. For the average Russian, the word Courchevel has long been a symbol of glamour, exclusivity, expensive champagne, and sable coats.
There's simply no money. So we'll find the money, and we'll build this sanatorium. Hang in there, all the best to you, good spirits and good health.
Now Moscow has gone even further and has started the disposal of the indigenous population of Sakha through the special military operation.
We, the Yakuts, are the fathers out there. Well, they just threw us out completely, abandoned us. They really just sent us there to be slaughtered. It's just 20 meters. The Ukrainians are already there.
How did it happen that a region with the lowest population density surprisingly became one of the largest suppliers of assault cannon fodder?
There is the presidential plane, Ruslan. We are picking up the bodies of fallen soldiers. All our guys are from Yakutsk, 26 people.
Yakuts are being sent thousands of kilometers from home to die for the Russian world, while the Russian world is destroying Yakuts in their own homeland, Ukraine. Deaths. According to official data alone, in Ukraine there have been deaths, disappearances, or people who have not returned. 32,191 residents of Yakutia did not return from the so-called special military operation. And that's just in 2022. And I repeat, according to official data. In reality, the scale of the destruction of the indigenous Sakha population is hard to imagine.
That's it. Playtime is over. You are all soldiers now.
The mobilization was carried out quite harshly indeed. That is, men were taken right from their homes.
If this isn't stopped, at this rate, Yakuts will only be talked about in history textbooks. Oh, wait! They won't.
And then, from 7th to 11th grade, the class is simply called History of Russia. And I'm from Yakutia. Yakutia is kind of Russia too. And I was like, oh, there will be something about us here. But there's not a single...
And finally, one last argument in favor of the idea that Russians don't even consider Yakuts to be people. Remember how Margosha Bobresha Simonian suggested detonating a nuclear bomb over Siberia? You know, to knock out the cell phones of Europeans and Americans? But what about the people living in Siberia, including Yakutia? That's already a rhetorical question. If the Yakuts had decent internet, they'd be thrilled by such a wonderful idea turning their region into a filming location for the Fallout series.
If we set off a thermonuclear explosion, say a nuclear blast, hundreds of kilometers away on our own territory, somewhere over Siberia, nothing would happen on the ground. Nothing terrible would happen. Not even the nuclear winter that everyone is so afraid of.
Russians are afflicted with fascism and Nazism. They have always treated their non-Russian fellow citizens as second-class people.
Right now, Russia is running its own regime. It really resembles the former German fascist Reichstag. And since in Russia there are Z symbols everywhere, just like there were swastikas in Germany, and they teach children in a way reminiscent of the Hitler Youth what they call the Unarmia.
Modern Russia is truly a reincarnation of the Third Reich, only in an even more perverted form. The Russians systematically and forcibly make all the peoples of Russia become Russian and then hate them because they don't look Russian.
I've been to Moscow 3 times, and all 3 times I was really regarded as anything but a citizen of the Russian Federation.
Are we the baddies?
But it's important to know, the Yakuts are not Russian, and they won't tolerate such abusive treatment for long. Over the past 100 years, the Yakuts have repeatedly taken up arms and risen up against hated Moscow. They fought especially fiercely against the establishment of Soviet power. Even then, the indigenous people understood that the Muscovites would bring nothing good.
If you're seeing this recording, it means I am fighting against Putin's dictatorship. Listen to the order. I order you to begin an armed uprising against Putin's dictatorship.
More and more Yakuts are openly declaring their desire for independence from the occupiers, so that the Russians would gather all their matryoshkas, balalaikas, portraits of the pale moth, and, shuffling in their bast shoes, get out beyond the Urals.
I am going to fight in Ukraine. I am going to fight not only for Ukraine, but also for our own freedom and independence. And I urge you to join our ranks, to join us. Ukraine will give us weapons and give us the opportunity to fight in their ranks for the freedom of Ukraine and for our own freedom.
The aggression against Ukraine has crippled the rusty pseudo-empire. Now it just needs to be finished off. For the Republic of Sakha, this is an opportunity. The main thing is that the Yakuts are not afraid of open struggle. Some people resist the Kremlin regime without weapons.
Hello, my name is Aikal Masov. I am from the Megino-Kangalaski Ulus. I am engaged in anti-war activities. I write poetry, double beating music, and in my free time I sit in prison.
And some, with weapons in their hands, are destroying the invaders. Yakuts from the Siberia battalion, which is fighting on the side of Ukraine, are in fact already waging a war for the independence of their homeland and other national republics.
Having lived my whole life in Russia, I very clearly and strongly felt the oppression of the peoples of Siberia, feeling that people there live in a very unfair and unjust way, that all the money always goes only to Moscow. Yes, it gets divided up there. And in fact, even the wealthy regions end up living in great poverty.
The Republic of Sakha is destined to prosper. It has every chance to become the Switzerland of Siberia. There is only one necessary condition: to send Moscow packing and develop independently from Mordor. Cut the Kremlin's umbilical cord that siphons off the wealth belonging to the Yakut people and to them alone.
The independence of the Republic is truly the dream of every single Yakut individual. Even as a child, I heard people talking about how Yakutia should be, the Republic should be free.
The Republic of Sakha, also known as Yakutia, will automatically become one of the largest and richest countries on planet Earth after gaining independence. Because wherever the Kremlin's hands can't reach, it's a flourishing city. But wherever they do, it's a city of decay.
Boss, the corner in our dormitory here is actually freezing through.
Here too, huh?
No, it's just from the window there.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.